This is the limestone lowdown. Hear the sound when you lie to the issues all around. From every corner, let's make it clear. The change we need is starting here.
Hi everybody, this is your host Jared and Amanda, and welcome to the second episode of the Limestone Lowdown. Thank you for joining us again. We're going to do a little quick recap of the last episode, because we're probably about 6 months behind from where we're at now. So we concluded the last episode. It led right up to our first city council meeting, which was kind of monumental for us. But just for a quick recap, previous to that, how we got here was the Haitians. A whole lot of them dropped off with nobody answering any questions, and nobody knew anything apparently. And so that led us down a rabbit trail of just trying to find answers just like everybody else. So Amanda, if you'd like to pick up right before our first city council meeting.
Sure. So we, like last episode, the mayor had told us to go and talk to our state, representatives. I called our senators and hadn't heard anything back. And Dale Strong's office was very helpful in giving us recommendations. And, it was like, you need to go take this to the news. If the news doesn't know that there's an issue going on in Athens, then no one's going to know about it. So she challenged me to reach out to our local news stations. We had talked with 31 and 48, and prior to our first city council meeting, we had met with 31 reporter went with us, and we talked with Dana Henry, and I told her I will be at the next city council meeting, and I want to ask Mr. Seibert about his rental properties and how these migrants turned up in his properties overnight, with them not speaking the language, not being from here, not having cars, not having driver's licenses, not even having jobs set up yet. But somehow they knew exactly where to go, and that was to his properties. So we knew going into our first city council meeting that the council was going to be prepared for us to be there. So our first meeting was August the 12th, and they read a prepared statement, and I'll just kind of read a quick blurb from it. This isn't the whole thing, but it says, while this city is a welcoming place to all persons, any influx of newcomers can pose challenges to the delivery of local services. At this point, the city understands that the number of enrollments in the school system is minimal, and there has not been a noticeable increase in the municipal court docket. Nonetheless, city officials have reached out to state and federal officials, including the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, about this matter. Federal officials have advised that there are new immigrants from Haiti with federal work permits in the area, and they are here working legally in Alabama. Federal officials have not provided any numbers to the city. Local media reports indicate that there are multiple businesses in North Alabama area that are in need of workers and hired many of these immigrants. Some of these businesses outside of Athens have hired buses to transport them to work. So that was the first blurb that they had read out at the city council meeting. And so to kind of preface that, one of the questions that I had was when I went to go pick up my son's schedule, they had to have his immunization record on file. And they made it very clear to parents, if you do not have this on file, because he's going into the 6th grade, and so they had to get shots over the summer. And if you did not have that on file, you could not pick up your schedule. Even at open house the week of school, they're like, if your student does not have their schedule and there's not an immunization form on file, we cannot give you their schedule. So that was one of my questions, was if we had this huge influx of migrants over the summer, we saw several kids, and we're like, how are they coming from a third world country and being able to get updated on the U.S. vaccines within a matter of weeks? I called the school system. They were aware that there was going to be an influx of children. They knew about this. And so all of this just seemed very premeditated, pre-planned, And for them to act like that nobody knew anything about it was bogus to me. And we just wanted some answers as to why Athens. So I'll let Jared kind of talk over the next
Well,
little
you know,
bit.
it's kind of amazing how it seems to be a repeating pattern, getting just a little bit in the future, that they had answers when they were called out about it, but yet when you ask the answers initially, they had no answers. But yet when they get a little heat and they get called out about it, magically, oh, these are, blah, blah, blah. They had an answer then. And it's just crazy that you want answers, and a lot of people want answers, and they're just not very forthcoming with anything. And you just...
Right, because Dr. Lynn at Athens, she's fantastic. When I was asking her some questions, she said that, because they are here and they are in our district, they do have to provide an education, and I get that and I respect that. But my questions were, are they having to be vaccines, which I get it. They don't, HIPAA violations, they can't go into things like that. But they said that they were prepared and that they were receiving federal money for these kids, because my concern was, as an American child, if my kids are being accounted for and if they needed special resourcing, that I didn't want my children to lose resources because they were trying to accommodate this new group of students that were coming in. And she assured me that that wasn't the case and that they were receiving federal dollars.
But I think I need to stop you there and say that we need to talk about how money for the kids are paid. Is it not paid in arrears? It's not generally paid in the front, but yet they already had this money, which means what? They knew,
which
right?
I don't want to turn it into like a debate on here because we've had this conversation before, but it might be where they're on the docket to receive money next year, not as though they've already received it. And because this falls under the Biden parole program, funding is probably different. So yes, you're probably right. They probably did receive some money, but not because of the arrears, as though you're talking that they knew. It's the Biden parole program.
I'm not saying they if they normally receive $500, I'm not saying they received that. I'm just saying they had a little pre-knowledge of it. That's all I want to say.
Possibly, but I think that the Biden parole program, because it is written so flexible and there's so much gray area in that, and because there's billions of dollars that is set aside for certain things, and to pad, and that let's do it. The number one reason for the Biden parole program is to pad someone's pocket. And so there's all these billions of dollars that is set aside, and I don't think that it was in arrears like the way a school system typically counts kids. I think that it was under the Biden parole program. There's money that was set aside that you can go and ask for, and then that filters down to the state. But then that also leads to Kay Ivey in the state. She's acted like we don't have any here and that we didn't know there was a problem until the conversations with like Sylacauga and Albertville and stuff like that, because that's never been an issue. Which Kay Ivey has never even had a press conference about this.
You're right, she hasn't. But let's also say that it's not just Haitians. The term is non-English speakers.
Correct.
So the federal government, the state of Alabama, is giving more money to the school systems for non-English speakers than they do to fund regular, off-the-street American kids. Mm-hmm. So let's also factor that in there too. That there's also more money attached to these immigrants as well.
Correct. And so again, it's all about money. If you follow the money, that's the famous line: follow the money. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, but I'll think about it and then I'll come back to it.
Council President Henry noted that the Athens City School District has approximately 5,300 students enrolled from 21 countries other than the United States, represented, and in other than English, 18 languages spoken. The system has 255 students enrolled that are from outside the United States, and of those 5,300 students, only 22 are of Haitian origin. She explained that the school system reported that immunization records were provided by immigrant students and were referred to the Limestone County Health Department for documentation. She noted that this information was provided by the Athens City School Superintendent Beth Patton.
which, as we talked about last time, that the council appoints the school board and then the school board appoints the superintendent. I don't know anything about Beth Patton. I've heard she's, a very nice person. She's great. So I'm not speaking any ill towards her. I'm just saying that she is controlled by ultimately controlled by the council and the mayor. So, in with anything, that statistics, you can skew a statistic to represent what you want it to represent.
I mean, the famous line is lies, damn lies, and statistics. So
right.
Take it how you want.
And, I just kind of want to go over this. It's like there's only 255 students enrolled that are outside of the United States. It's kind of funny that they may be students that aren't legally, that they were born in other countries, but I can assure you that there is more than 255 students that are of different ethnicity. They just probably were not born here. And then also when it talks about the 22 Haitian children that are enrolled, that is also falsified. There are 22 Haitian children at the elementary school alone. So there are 22 Haitian elementary kids that are segregated to one school. So they bus this one, Haitian, Venezuelan, Guatemalan part of the Bride and Parole program. They bus them to one elementary school, and then they are, they're, assimilated into, 4 through 12. And there's definitely more than 22. There's 22 elementary aged kids. And let's just say that there's, 22 at the intermediate school, 22 at the middle school, and 22 at the high school, which based on, children and parents at other schools, there's definitely more than 22. So again, those numbers are definitely skewed.
And then this was also from August, I believe, is when
right.
they put these out.
Right.
And this was at the height of the drop-off. So these numbers are all old from August. I mean, like you're saying,
right.
Who knows how many it is now. I mean, we've heard all kind of stories about various things that have happened, and it's like, no, it's a whole lot more than 22.
Right. And then to kind of segue over a little bit, and then we'll come back to city council. So I was asked to be on the Dell Jackson show and kind of talk about some of the things that were going on in Athens, like with the Haitians, because again, at this time in August, it was all over the news in Albertville, and then we get into Sylacauga a couple months after that. So this was heavy in the news in the state of Alabama. And so I had went on to the Dell Jackson show, and Dell Jackson was trying to get Chris Seibert, which is the city councilman. I don't know that we actually said that he owns a multitude of properties that have the Haitian migrants in there. And again, we said that they scurried like ants and they knew exactly where to go, and that they were his houses. And so that's where the question came in. Why Athens? Who at a federal level reached out to you to put these people here? There's, we don't have any sort of industry that they're working in. Are there some, a handful? There's probably more now because they got here and they didn't have jobs. But for the main thing, it's like we don't have a chicken plant here. So they were having to bus them. So did someone at the chicken plants reach out to you for housing? Did someone at the federal level reach out to you? Someone at the state level reach out to you to house these people? We also talked to people that got evicted several months before. So this was pre-planned. This was premeditated. It was set up. They knew this was coming. And we just, of course we knew nobody was going to admit that this is what happened. But anyways, go off on that little bit of a tangent. But
I would like to say, and of course he said that this was all false. He denied every bit of it. I believe there's even statements in the at the city council meeting that that did not happen, that he's not received anything. So that's just our speculation about that. Again, we don't know for sure, but
knowing that we've talked to people that have been evicted from his houses, there were certain things that he fixed and remodeled. I use that term lightly in some houses, but he had evicted some people 8 months before, and there are pictures where he has, somewhat remodeled and put new floor down and, did various things. Added some additions. Knowing that the optics of it make it appear as though he knew this was coming. And again, we've talked to these people several times, and they are not aware that, they're not aware. They don't speak our language. It's very hard to communicate with them. So you have to intentionally want to have a conversation with them in order to understand them and for them just to know exactly where to go. But anyways, kind of back on track. Sorry about that. I'll let Jared kind of talk about what happened with the Dale Jackson show and when he had him on as a guest.
So I guess we need to, for those that don't live in North Alabama, the Dale Jackson Show is a daily Monday through Friday radio program that's pretty popular all over North Alabama. So Amanda was on there, and Dale Jackson was very receptive to what she was saying, and it just kind of blew up from there between her being on the Dale Jackson Show and us being on the newscast and everything else. Kind of leading up to the I believe it was the first city council meeting. Would you like to go into?
No, I want you to talk about the Dale Jackson Show and him having Chris Seibert on there.
Well, that was after, wasn't it? So right after Amanda was on there, the next day, Chris Seibert was on there, and he said that not only were the students vaccinated, they were over-vaccinated.
And Dale Jackson had...
Dale Jackson, I mean, it's not, obviously it's on radio, but you could almost like hear his mouth drop open like, really? And he just questioned him, and the other folks on the show were like, what? After he got off the phone, they're like, what is this? Like,
that makes no sense.
How can you say that? So
you're fleeing a third world country,
exactly,
and the first thing that you think to grab is your vaccination card to go to the United States.
And we're going to go with the line that they're receiving more vaccines than United States citizens and coming from a third world country.
Right.
And then they grab that with they're worried about their lives. They're starving. They're trying to flee. And they're like, oh, let me make sure I get my vaccine card to where I can enroll my kids.
Right. And because it was just one of those things where it's like nobody was questioning if they had vaccines or not. It was just so comical that when you ask them this, that now it becomes that, oh yeah, they're vaccinated and they're over vaccinated and they have proof of it. There is no way, even if they have different vaccines, because they probably do have different vaccines than we have here. But you can't tell me that in a matter of a few weeks that you were able to get fully vaccinated from the time you got here until the time
I don't even think
started.
that's medically possible because
right.
you have to space it out. Exactly.
And and one of the ways, so kind of back to city council, so in asking these questions, he was like, Chris Seibert made the statement to me that I needed to check my heart and that I needed to do some soul searching, and almost tried to frame me as though that I was racist, which I guess that's just your cop out when you have a constituent merely questioning how these people got to Athens. Because when you say these people, they almost take it as though that you have a problem with their skin color, and it that was never it. It's like Jared had mentioned in the first episode, if you come in and drop off 1,000 or more of anybody who doesn't live here, you're gonna question it, even if it's people from another area. Yeah, you're like, wait, we are the number one growing county and the number one growing city in the state the last several years. We are already overpopulated. We have tons of new neighborhoods going up, as I'm sure a lot of areas do across the state. So it was very easy to frame and portray us as that way because that was their only thing that they had. And I also reached out to some of some of the parents that I know that are around here, and I was like, that was never my intent. And so many people reassured me that they're like, you're the last person that we would think this about you. So I guess that was just their cop out to try to get the attention off of them and us, looking like the bad people that we would question.
And not only that, but I received threats on my phone, text messages. I received a Facebook threatening message both against me and my family.
Derogatory.
My job was called, and I had to have a meeting with HR. They said, what's going on here. So it was an all-out attack for merely asking questions. So just let you guys know that if you ever get involved in anything like this, they will pull out every trick in the book to try to get at you, to try to silence you, basically.
And that's what's taken us so long
To even start
this, because, like, Dale Strong's office was like, create a website, go live, talk about what's going on. And there came a point where we were like, we're already so heavily out there, we might as well just do it. But there were part of us that was still had reservations because we both do have jobs, and we have families, and it just became like they were attacking us because we were merely asking questions. And it all goes back to why Athens, and to this day we still haven't gotten any answers. So kind of going back to the first city council meeting, that was one of the conversations that were brought up. We brought up about, the majority of the houses that we were seeing them in were linked to, Chris Seibert was the owner. And so we asked him about that. He didn't deny that he owned and rented houses to some of these Haitian migrants, but that he had no involvement with the government. And there's nothing for us to say whether he has or hasn't, but that was our first meeting. We had several people that had came with us. So in response to my statement that I made to Chris Seibert, he responded by saying that he's not now or ever been involved in any kind of federal subsidy program, whether relating to housing or work permits. He explained that he and his family have some rental properties as part of how he makes a living, and he stated that he's never been involved in any federal or private funding for subsidy program relating to migrants. Mr. Seibert said that a small number of his rental properties involve leases to folks here on federal work permits, and he noted that federal laws require non-discrimination in housing and that he rents to all different types of people. And he also noted that the migrant workers work for a number of local businesses according to them, and that they're here legally with federal work permits. And so, that was another question that was brought up was he receiving money from the federal program, because we know that the migrants were here on the Biden parole program, and that they were linked to a government work visa, and so they are tracked and they are placed here. And so a lot of the things that he said just were not adding up. They weren't passing the smell test for sure.
And back to the whole talking to the immigration office, so none of the immigrants here are asylum seeking, which means, again, the United States government did not place these folks here. So back to the question, why Athens, how Athens, and everything else.
It's still, the question still remains, because like you said, the immigration office, when we contacted them, and we'll go into that into the next episode, but one of the families that we've been meeting and helping here, I did end up calling the immigration office and asking what we could do to help them, because they are under the Biden parole program. They are entitled to certain benefits, and this one particular family and several other families were not receiving them. And so I reached out and I was like, how did they end up here in Athens? And she was like, basically a representative was like, hey, do you have somewhere where we can put these? Because they did not legally come through the immigration office seeking asylum. They came here through the federal work program. And she said, we would have never put anyone in Athens because we know it's overpopulated. We know that there's nowhere for them to go, which goes back to our original statement of why did they get here and how did they get here. So
thank you for joining us today. We're going to stop on that little bit of a cliffhanger. And next episode is what happened immediately after the first city council meeting, leading into the second city council meeting, where the stuff really started happening.
And I think we may have a special episode just to kind of recap, because we're kind of in this lull where we've kind of got to catch up for the last 6 to 8 months, but then we've still got things that are continuously going on here too. So we do want to talk about what happened at the meeting yesterday, January 6th, with the Athens City and the Limestone County with the joint resolution with the library board. So we'll probably have a special episode in there here in the next couple of days up. So Until next time, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Limestone Lowdown, where we break down the issues, keep you informed, and give you facts straight from the source. Remember, your voice matters, your vote counts, and your community thrives when we stay engaged. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay involved. Until next time, keep questioning, keep advocating, and keep shaping the future of the Limestone area. We'll see you on the next Limestone Lowdown.